Hello, welcome. I'm joined by Franco Zagari of the Milan Club New York. As you can see, I'm right in front of the Stadio Olimpico in Rome, the venue for tomorrow's Coppa Italia final between Milan and Bologna. And the Milan Club New York will be following this game live with the Rossoneri fans. Ciao, Franco. Thank you so much for joining me. How's it going?
Ciao Lorenzo, it's going great. We're very good for the final, and thanks for inviting me onto the stream today.
My pleasure, absolutely. Look, what's the organization for tomorrow? What have you guys planned? How are you watching the game? What's the plan for the final tomorrow? What are you going to do in New York?
So the plan is the same as it is for every single game for the last 12 years, 13 years. Same bar, same people. We gather at a bar called the Football Factory, which is in Legends Bar. It's right across the street from the Empire State Building, so it's very easy for people to find. Obviously, being a Wednesday evening, it's a difficult time for some people because most people are at work at that time. But I have a feeling that some people may have taken a half a day or a full day, or might not be feeling so well in the morning.
And personally, how do you see this game? What do you expect from the guys here in Rome?
That's the golden question, right? Because this year Milan has proven that they are capable of anything, and that is both positive and negative, right? So, what do we expect? We expect one of the two Jekyll and Hyde Milans that we have seen this season. One would hope that we see the more positive Milan, the more motivated Milan, the Milan that, to be quite honest, has been the one that's shown up in the bigger games this season. Because when they have encountered a stronger opponent in a high level matchup in a game with higher stakes, they've actually performed pretty well. So let's hope that is the team that shows up tomorrow night.
And I've been covering the press conferences here, the training sessions from Bologna and Milan, and talking to a few colleagues as well. The big question over here is, let's say Milan win this game tomorrow, hopefully for the Rossoneri. They finish the season with two trophies, but out of Champions League. How would you judge this season?
Well, no, yeah. I mean, you can win tomorrow night's game 8-0, and I would say that 99% of Milan fans will still judge this season as a relative failure. I mean, winning the trophy would definitely help a little bit. Obviously, gaining direct access into the Europa League would also be a small consolation for everything that went wrong this season, especially up until a couple of weeks ago. It didn't look like we would be playing European football at all next year.
Yes.
So, it would be, it would help an otherwise disappointing season. The Supercoppa was a mild success. It's always nice to win a trophy. It's always nice to beat your rival. Two rivals when you think about it, because they beat Juventus in the semifinal.
Yeah.
But in the semifinal of Coppa Italia, it was very nice to deny Inter of a possible treble. But let's be very, very honest, and I speak for myself and not an entire club.
Yeah, of course.
All opinions are my own, but I would trade spots with Inter in a heartbeat. Let's be honest. They are in a much better position than Milan at this point in time, and winning the Coppa Italia versus having the chance to lift the ultimate trophy is certainly a very big difference.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. And of course, as well, linked to Milan results, what a lot of media are discussing as well, which is tied to the Milan results, is Milan win this cup. two trophies under Conceição. So should he stay or not? I think it's a tricky call because things have improved with in time with Conceição. Because the start was really, really bad, bad in confidence, poor results besides the Super Coppa. I think it would be a tricky call. I mean, I would still be quite, intriguing to see what Conceição does in another season with more time available. But at the same time, it feels like Milan need to start from scratch. I'm a little bit. I'm not entirely convinced about either of the two options. What do you think about it?
No, it's a very good question. If you asked me maybe a month ago, it probably would have been a very flat answer. It would be time to move on, and thank you for stepping in and doing your best, but it's time to move on. I would say for the most part, I still feel that way.
Yeah.
I think that the results in Serie A since his arrival are really the deciding factor. It doesn't always seem like he has the best relationship with certain players either, but we don't know exactly what goes on behind closed doors. And then, nobody from the team ever really comes forward to explain what that relationship is like either. So everybody is left guessing, everybody is left hypothesizing about, what the true relationship is between players and coach. That being said, on the surface and the optics of it, sometimes it doesn't seem like the relationship is there with some of the more important players. And I think that's more important because as much as it's unfair sometimes to a manager to be fired or to be let go or to move on from a manager, it's much easier to move on from one manager than from a multitude of players. And,
Yeah.
At least you have the opportunity to then over the summer find the coach that you didn't find this year to match the personalities that are on your team. And in the end, it's more the responsibility of the coach to adapt to his players than for the players to adapt to their coach. I've always said that. And I'm a person who coaches themselves. You're always going to find different types of personalities and skill sets in front of you. You have to adapt to them. If you expect everybody to adapt to you as a coach, it's not going to work out very well 90% of the time. Obviously, there are a few exceptions out there when it comes to managers. But, when we're talking about Milan managers over the last few years, they really need to cater to the players that are giving their best for the team and the ones that want to stay, right? So the issue becomes, who are you going to get over the summer? And I think, if they weigh out their options and they don't find an option that they feel is more viable than the current option, then I wouldn't be surprised if they held on to him either. So obviously tomorrow night will play a factor into that as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the relationship between Conceição and the players, and this is something that came up during the press conference as well today because he was asked, Milan have gained 19 points from losing position under Conceição. They went down in 9 games. I mean, in 9 of the games where they went down, they managed to recover the result and either get a draw or a victory. And overall, they gained 19 points from losing position. So after going down, and Conceição was asked whether this was linked to a better relationship between him and the players, between him and the staff. Why? How does he explain this sort of strong comebacks from the Rossoneri, which happened on Friday as well, because they went down 1-0 against Bologna and then came back from behind to get a 3-1 win. And he replied by saying that the players are getting to know a little bit better the staff. There is mutual respect. There is a positive environment in training. And he looked at one point. He said, "I look pretty sad, and I look pretty a tough one now, but we just can't wait to play." He was joined by Maignan in his pre-match press conference, and he said, "We can't wait to play, and we have a good spirit going into this final because we really want to to win another trophy. And he didn't talk much about his future, which is understandable, especially before such a big game, and because he has never done it this season, even in the toughest moments, even when he at some point it seemed that he was going to be fired as well. You remember before Lecce, and even during the Lecce game, there were reports during the game saying that he was going to be sacked if Milan had lost the game. But he has always focused on the daily work, and he has never focused much about the rumors. And there's a lot of rumor right now because somebody's talking. I mean, there's a lot of talk about the sports director, which hasn't been chosen yet, and perhaps may not even be chosen because the latest rumors suggest that maybe they will like to keep the same ownership, the same management at the club. But I think, as you said, tomorrow's game will probably say a lot about the Milan strategies for next season as well. Because uh, I mean, the coach, of course, will play an important part, and if it does end with two trophies for Milan, I think they'll think twice before letting Conceição go. And for sure, tomorrow at least two of the players to watch. I mean, the best scorers this season, quite surprisingly, I would say, in one way, are Pulisic and Tijani Reinders. So, starting from Pulisic, what can you tell us from an American perspective? I guess it's been the perfect match for you guys over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, from the day that the rumors started that they would possibly pick him up, it was, it was a big emotion for an American Milan fan to have the possibility of the most important American player currently and possibly in history to wear the Milan jersey. It's that was enough in itself. Then for him to perform the way he has over the last 2 seasons has been absolutely incredible. I think he's exceeded everyone's expectations. It's a great point of pride for an American fan. Obviously, he had a brief decline, I would say, this season. March and April wasn't his best, and probably his worst during his time at Milan, which makes me question perhaps the relationship with the manager. But he was battling injury too. He was quite tired. He was flying back and forth to North America for national team duty. He was playing a lot of minutes in very inconsequential games for his national team as well. So, but his stats don't lie. His statistics, while he's on the field for Milan, have been vital for the team. Who knows where they would be in the standings without Christian Pulisic?
Yeah.
And so he's been a very important part of the team. He fits in many roles. He's done well on the right side. He obviously fits well on the left side, which is his natural position, which he doesn't play much because of Rafa. He's played at the 10 a couple of times and done relatively well there as well. So he's a very versatile player who has fit well, I would say, with every manager that he's had so far at Milan. I think he had a very good relationship with Pioli. I think that was evident. We don't really know how it was with Fonseca, but he was performing, and I think that's all that mattered. I would say with this manager, it's questionable also because of the arrival of Joao Felix and what that brought to the dynamic. It perhaps disrupted Pulisic's flow a little bit, but he's just a great guy. Extremely humble. We had the chance to interact with him over the summer, and he's everything that you expect him to be. Is just a very humble, appreciative, definitely reserved, but I think that's part of what makes him so likable, especially within Italy. He's not, a stereotypical arrogant American. I think that his effort to learn the language, and he's doing, very well, speaking in post-game interviews on DAZN and other networks across Italy, and he's done things that other players that have arrived from other countries over the years on Milan and other teams simply have not done in the time that he's done it. And for it to be an American to do it that way is special. So, on and off the field, I feel like he has like this full buy-in and a love for the club. So, as a Milan fan first, and as somebody who was born in this country, it's it's a pleasure to see, and what comes out of this season is the question mark between him. You mentioned Tijani Reindeers, Rafael Leao. Who remains? Who is going to profess their love for this shirt to the point where it doesn't matter which competition they play in next season, that they will remain here and try to help the team get back to where they belong. So that's a question mark as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking a little bit around because, as I was saying before, we were chatting off the records. You see a few people going away from here. You saw a little bit some cars as well. Because, I mean, the Olympico is just behind me, but where you see those statues over there, it's where they've built a new tennis court for the Italian Open. So there was a game that finished not long ago, and the whole thing for the tennis Open is right behind nearby the Stadio Olimpico. So what's nice about the Coppa Italia Final is that it always comes. I'm a huge tennis fan, so I'm always happy to come here for the Coppa Final because I know I will find some tennis fans as well. Um, Let me see if I can show you a little bit from closer here. See, the tennis court is over there, and the Stadio Olimpico is just behind me.
You should
And
go find Yannick. I'm sure he wants to talk Milan too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And Zlatan was here today at the Italian Open, saying that he was going to support Sinner, and that Sinner, I think, is coming tomorrow to watch the game.
That's what they said.
And one question about Leao, Franco. He was suspended against Bologna in the latest round. It hasn't been. We haven't witnessed anything new from him this season, I would say. The usual highs and lows. The highs were really high. The lows were pretty low. Tomorrow is one of those games where Milan need Leao.
I'm the type of person that defends Leao. I feel like where there are plenty of people to point the finger at when Milan is not performing well, I don't think that he should always be the first choice. Is he Milan's most skilled and most prolific player? Yes. Is he the one that is always to blame? No. And I think the last 2 months have proven that as well. I think he carries the team. He carries the team as well as Christian Pulisic can perform in his statistics, as well as Tijani Reindeers can carry the midfield. As Rafael Leao goes, Milan goes. And I think, when he is on the field, it is a much different Milan. Are there games that he looks less engaged than others? For sure. And that's probably what is stopping him from becoming, that next level, 40 class type of player. But he is Milan's most important player. I think he takes way too much flack. I feel like he's just one of those people that needs maybe the right leaders and the right coach. It goes back to the conversation before about how they need to find a manager that matches the players well. But in the final, he certainly needs to be the difference maker.
And what do you fear the most about Bologna? What do you think Bologna can do to hurt Milan tomorrow? And then as well, where can Milan hurt Bologna?
I think up front, right, and down the middle of the field. Bologna is a very good team. Who expected them to be performing as well as they did last season? And they really haven't missed much of a beat since last year. The departures, the change in manager. Not many people expected them to be here. They're so well coached. They have such dedicated players. I obviously, for starters, Calabria is going to be a catalyst. I feel like he's going to want to perform tomorrow night, and I feel like his teammates are going to try to rise to the occasion for him specifically as well. Orsolini is their top player. I think he's always ready to score some magic. He never
Yeah.
scores ugly goals, right? He always scores,
Yeah.
some pretty goal and something that's very impressive. I think two guys that don't get talked about enough are Sam Bukema and Remo Freuler, and
Yeah.
it goes to show you how simplistic of a team Bologna is, right? It's almost like um, old school grassroots football where you put your best players down the middle, right? And when it comes to Bukema and Freuler, those are two players that don't get talked about a lot. They don't carry a lot of stats, but they're probably the two most important, you know, solid players that Bologna has. If they find a way to exploit Milan's defense, then Milan could easily be in trouble. At the same rate, uh, Leao and Theo know Calabria very well, and so it's going to be their job to expose his deficiencies and his weakness on that side. Right? They're going to have to make his life very, very difficult. On the other side, if it's Miranda starting, he's a very strong defender, but sometimes can be susceptible to cards. So whoever's playing down that right side can make his life difficult. Maybe get him to take an early yellow card. On the other end, it's going to be Mike Magnan's and Milan's back line's job to quell the attack from a guy like Orsolini or Odegaard or let's say Dominguez comes on as a substitute. That's another dangerous player that could do some damage. So that back line is going to have it's going to need to have a perfect game for Milan for them to succeed. Hopefully Fofana is fully fit because he and Reindeers are going to have their work cut out for them. They're going to have a heavy load for
Yeah.
90 minutes, if not more, if this game, goes to extra time. So I would say Orsolini, obviously, guy to watch. Calabria. Our hope as Milan fans is that he, maybe gets too emotional, and let's see what
Yeah.
we can get to him. But there's going to be no doubt that he's trying to be as motivated as possible to win this match.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, of course, he's a long time Milan fan, product of the academy. But when he left, he spoke in a certain way about Milan, especially the last few years. Clearly, he didn't do much under Conceição, didn't play much under Conceição, but the environment was already pretty much settled for him because there was, I mean, contractors were leading nowhere, so it was out of the project regardless of the coach. And yeah, I think he'll have mixed emotions tomorrow. Like in the one way, a bit of desire for revenge; on the other way, you're facing the team of your life. So it's not going to be easy emotionally for Davide Calabria. Another talking point for today's press conference on Conceição was the striker. So the main options appear to be either Jovic or Jimenez. The reply was quite funny because the question from the reporter literally was, I want to ask a straight question, Conceição. So who are you going to start? You're going to start Jovic or Jimenez? And Conceição was quite funny because he replied, I'm going to be very straightforward and honest too. I don't know. I mean, they don't know, and I won't, and I'm not going to tell you. They don't even know, and I'm not going to tell you. So he knows probably, but he's the only one who knows. Probably the players will be informed tomorrow morning, or maybe they were informed this evening. Jovic started the last game, but Jimenez got the goals from the bench. So who would you start?
That's such a tough question, and I do not envy Conceição right now. Right, it's a tough one. Right, he seems to be facing this problem probably at the worst possible time. Whereas 2-3 weeks ago it didn't look like it was going to be an issue at all, and that that his second option probably would have been Tammy Abraham and not Santiago Jimenez. So if he gets it wrong that's going to be another thing that is just added to the list, unfortunately for him. I don't envy him. I'm probably going against the grain on this one, but if I were the manager, sometimes I feel like the press follows trends and they play into, this is the guy that is performing currently. Let's make a big deal about it. And then sometimes, fans reading, those articles or seeing those reports tend to follow those trends also, sometimes blindly. And so, that might cause many people to say Santi right now, right? Because the last two game performances there, I personally feel that like Jovic has made it his personal mission to prove his worth and to prove so many people wrong, and that he's not done yet. Santi Menes has played well for the last 2-3 weeks, but my choice would be Jovic because he's played well for the last 2-3 months. And he scored some big time goals. He plays motivated. I think he's a little better with individual skill and playing off the ball and creating things on his own, whereas Santi really needs the perfect service. And if he's not getting that tomorrow night, it's going to cause an issue for a team that really needs to score right away. And I think Jovic will fight a little more on and off the ball and make a difference early. He's going to be more motivated and more aggressive. And so I'm hoping that Jovic is the first choice tomorrow night.
Yeah, I agree with you, and especially because we're talking about a striker, Jimenez, who scored the last two goals coming off the bench. So this means he has a very good impact from the bench as well. And in a way, Conceição has proved already that this is a situation that currently works. Jovic starts, and then Jimenez comes off the bench if it's needed. Of course, people want Jimenez because he was the big signing in January, because everyone's waiting for him. And regardless the time he has taken to adapt to Milan and to a new club, I would still expect him to be the first choice striker for next season, regardless of who the coach is. But this doesn't mean, you're right, he has to start tomorrow. He's been hot and cold. Recent weeks have been probably the best because he scored in an important game against Bologna, but this doesn't mean that he's ready to start. So probably I would go with Jovic as well, and the rest of the lineup seems pretty much done for Milan with a 3-4-3 formation with Magnan, Pavlovic, Gabbia, and Tomori, Alex Jimenez, who is probably the besides the already mentioned Pulisic and Reinders. I think that under Conceição he's been the best Milan player, at least the most surprising one. Of course, again, besides the two we already mentioned. So he would start on the right central midfield, Reinders and Fofana, who is expected to be recovered from a recent injury.
Yep.
Theo Hernandez, Pulisic, Jovic or Jimenez, but I see Jovic slightly favorite, and then Rafa Leao coming back from a suspension. Before we finish, Franco, how often do you guys or fans from New York come here in Italy to watch Milan games? Because I'd like to meet you once.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one, obviously, to get on a flight. I think the toughest part is to organize, a group trip. So our club is not a paid for membership club. So everybody just comes to the bar on their own account. And so, organizing group trips are probably the hardest thing, especially in the time of year that football is played in Italy. It's, the standard work year. A lot of people tend to travel in Italy during the summer months instead when football is not being played. I would say if people come for a match, it's on their own account. I would say, the average member probably comes once a year for a match. Cool. So,
which is still pretty good, because I couldn't imagine like NBA fans coming to the US from Italy to watch NBA games once a year. It's still is still a very good thing. And I mean, I love seeing all you guys from New York, but many other fans abroad, of course, following Football Italia, following me. It's so good that Italian football has so many lovers around the world, and yeah, I really can't wait for tomorrow because the stadium looks great. Uh, the teams are not doing haven't done their best, especially Milan in Serie A, but they're quality teams. I mean, we previewed the game. There are so many good players out there tomorrow. You mentioned Orsolini, Raffaella for Milan, but the whole Milan team is filled with quality. They just lack consistency this season because the quality is clearly there.
Yeah, I
And
think
talk, yeah,
that's the difference between the two squads. I think that you have one squad that's extremely motivated, that knows that they don't have anything to lose. Right, Bologna really is playing with house money.
yeah, they haven't
Whereas
played the Coppa Italia Final for 51 years, so they have
before, right?
30,000 fans tomorrow from Bologna.
Right, and as so they're going to have that little extra boost as well, right? Whereas Milan is on paper the more experienced team. You know, if Milan plays the correct game, there is no reason for them to lose this match. But as I said at the top of the show, you know, Milan has proven that they are capable of anything and everything this year. So, you know, it's anybody's guess. It really. It should be an interesting match. Let's just hope for very good football and an entertaining match, and not, you know, a closed 1-0 or, you know, 0-0 match where that goes to extra time or something. So let's just hope for a nice, you know, a nice commercial for Italian football and for Serie A, and two teams that perhaps, you know, haven't gotten as much love as you know, obviously Inter this season. So.
Yeah, yeah, but still, Milan are fighting for the second trophy this season, and even though Serie A has been pretty disappointing and Champions League qualification is practically impossible, there's a lot at stake. Especially, I mean, it means winning a trophy, and it means qualifying for Europa League, which, given the circumstances, wouldn't be bad at all because it's still a very important European competition. And
I mean, it's
the team,
it's an
yeah, yeah,
important trophy. It's an
yeah,
important trophy. They've only won it once in my entire lifetime. I'm 42 years old, and I've only seen them lift it once. It's kind of crazy. And the last time they did it was still, you know, a two-leg affair. So, you know, it's an important trophy. Also, you know, the Coppa Italia patch, the Coccarda, looks nice on the jerseys the following year. So
yeah.
it's another you know, lame reason to win it, but it's a good one anyway.
Franco, thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you best of luck for tomorrow to you and all the other Milanisti at the Milan Club New York. Thank you so much for joining me. We speak very, very soon.
Lorenzo, thank you for having me, and Forza Milan.
Bye.
Arrivederci.